Hey, aloha everyone. Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com, author of Great Maui Land Grab. It's in its third edition, you guys. What Caused the Maui Fire and Is Your Home Next? It includes 21 LA fire oddities, crazy stuff that's going down. And my guest today is Louis Herms of Screw Big Gov. And does he have a story for you guys today? We have the Didia Combs case that's happening. We have our Maui mayor, or not Maui mayor, sorry, Maui police chief, who is now indicted in this case. And allegedly, even though I read through the whole thing, it's absolutely atrocious what the allegations that he has right now on him. But Louis, you have something that's kind of up this alley and is pretty mind-blowing. So I'm just going to give it to you.
Yeah, it's interesting how I now know. I didn't know before. I now know that God puts us in specific places and locations for a reason that sometimes, in my case, you find out decades later that you were there for a purpose. So in 93, I was a troubleshooter, I guess, manager for the largest plumbing drain cleaning, commercial plumbing drain cleaning outfit in California. And we did residential, but never Beverly Hills really wasn't our territory. But we were called to Beverly Hills one day, and upon arrival to to the front gate, in fact, we called security. Here's what the front gate looks like today, which I find fascinating. This is from Google Pro, so it's blurred out. Now, it's the truth is though you can call and you can make an appeal and then they'll blur out some certain things. So this isn't the most rare thing ever, but it is interesting because all the other addresses around there are not blurred out. So don't know why they would want to blur this out. So we get there, security, we call security at the front gate. Um, we didn't know at the time what was going on. We didn't know that this mansion was unoccupied, and we didn't really know what it was about. What we did know is that the owner of several grocery store chains that we did a lot of work on is the one that asked us to go to this house. So when we opened the gate, this is the gate right here, we go in and we go to the left. Now, not a big deal, but at the time we even thought it was weird. So there's walls outside the perimeter, and then there's walls inside the perimeter also of this place. When we turn the corner, we find this huge place, 45,000 square foot mansion. I mean, just absolutely humongous on 5 acres of land. It used to be a Harold Lloyd estate called Green Acres, and it was on 15 acres, but when it was parceled down, it's now 5 acres. They sold off the other two. But what was fascinating about this place, it was actually gorgeous. I mean, it was just the architecture was gorgeous, and of course, you kind of had some Spanish architecture, which some medieval type architecture on the pillars and so on and so forth around the house. But when we a top-down view of this place right here is pretty fascinating, actually. It is right here, if you can see that, that's where the
Mhm.
guardhouse was. So these guards were 24/7 on this property. Not so that was fascinating. So we came in through here and we parked probably some over here. This pool was not there. In fact, this is a beautiful garden before a very long garden. It's odd. They had a pool here, so we're not quite sure why they did this. Maybe the owner just wanted an extravagant pool. So all in all, it's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
We're going around the place. We didn't think much of it back then. Then we saw this little thing. This is a miniature house, actually. So when I say miniature house, in order to get into the house, you actually have to crawl to get into the house. Now, we had security was following us around. So we were supposed to do is the guy that was purchasing the property asked us to inspect every single drain and plumbing fixture on the entire property, inside, outside, you name it. And his purpose was to drive down the selling costs or pull it off of the escrow. So I believe the original selling cost was 39. Not that we drove it down this far, but it eventually sold for 20 million.
Wow.
And I'll talk about who actually purchased this coming forward. So this is a miniature house. So you have to crawl in. Now, what was fascinating about this is when you go in. So well, let me explain. So the owner is called Ron Burkle. He owns this home. Ron Burkle is now famous Hollywood producer. The reason why he bought this home, we found out later, is because he wanted to get his foot in the door to Hollywood. So it worked. So he did get his foot in the door to Hollywood, and now he's a famous Hollywood insider producer. So when we were going around this property, they had security following us all over the place. In fact, sometimes tripping over our cords, getting in the way of us. It was annoying. So I called Ron Burkle myself at the time, and I said, "Do you want to spend more or do you want to spend less?" He goes, "Well, that's a ludicrous question. Of course, I want to spend less." I go, "Well, maybe you should call off the dogs. It's your property is unoccupied, and they're really slowing us down." He's like, "Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'll do that." So next thing you know, we have free run of the property. Now, he didn't know that, right? My real motivation was my friend and I were very curious, and we wanted to really look at everything on this property, even place that wouldn't have plumbing and drains, right? So we crawl into this house thinking there's obviously not going to be any working plumbing or drains in here. It's a miniature house. It's for little kids, right? You have to bend
So
down
they
and
literally built a house for children, a children's
lit
size house.
literally like we bend down to get in and you had to crawl through it. Well, what we found in here is we found an actual working sink and working toilet that was miniature sized, full plumbing. Crazy, right? On near this house was an actual carousel, just like you would see at, say, Santa Monica Pier or at a fair, an actual full carousel. This place supposedly was built by Harold Lloyd and it was called Fairyland. So it was a lot more expansive than what we saw when we were there. Now, full disclosure, at the time, I forgot we're 20 something years old. We was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Yeah, famous people live here. They probably don't want to put their kids out in public. So they want to create a wonderful place to have parties. That was our mindset at the time. We weren't thinking anything nefarious back then. This is over 30 years ago. Now I know better now, right?
Yeah.
Although we did find something that was really weird. This is a top-down view right here. And in fact, I go back to this picture. Right here, this is an actual secret road that's completely covered, as you can see, by satellite. You can't see it. Right about here, there is an actual secret entrance to this property from the back. And it's a fence that has the exact same ivy on the opening part than it does on the closed parts to the side of it. Nobody walking by would have a clue. The only reason why we knew is because we saw the latches from the inside. So I don't know if it was the next night or the next morning, but we went to go inspect this. So we drove in and around the back side, and you can actually we found an entrance. Now, again, if you're walking by or driving by, you wouldn't know what's going on here. But now that we know, we found an entrance right here. So there's a secret entrance to this property. Even 30 years ago, that was crazy. In 1993, we're like, wow, what is going on here? That's really queer. That's crazy. Now we were thinking probably, these people are so eccentric. The reality is how we justify things
Hmm.
when we don't understand them, right? So moving forward, we entered the inside the house, and there was a huge, two huge kitchens, can house about 25 to 30 employees at the same time. Back then, we thought this is eccentric. Now we know they're trying to contain it so they don't have to hire catering to come in from outside. Everything within this home was contained, 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 contained. Now we know. So we went upstairs. Now, a lot of these images that I'm going to show you now, I actually produced on Grok. I don't want people to be misled. These are not real images. But we went into one room I called the black room. Black room had all black frame paintings, a black pool table. In next to it is a restroom that had a black urinal working, a black toilet, a black sink, and all gold fixtures. And of course, there's your Masonic floor. Right. Back
Mm-hmm.
then,
That's
didn't
right.
think, we just thought weird, crazy. For years, we talked about this black floor urinal, a black floor urinal. That's wacky. Who would ever do that, right? In a home of all things. But it exists in this home. So then we went to the library. Now, this library, I have to admit, was just gorgeous. It was an all mahogany library, floor to ceiling shelves that went all the way around, just like the movies. Michelle, you have that ladder that moves across that you can
Oh,
crawl
mm-hmm.
up to the, just like the movies, had everything. And then, so I don't know if it was my buddy or I, but one of us were joking around. I wonder if they have a secret door behind the bookshelves, because we're like, is there a book that we can pull, and so on and so forth. So we're having a good time, and we're looking, and I think it was he that noticed there was a seam between two bookshelves
Wow.
that was completely different than all the other seams. So I asked him to play lookout, because, by the way, there's no drains or plumbing in this area, so we're not supposed to be in this area. So he played lookout, and I'm moving and shaking, and finally this bookshelf actually pops open. So I think has a magnet on it. Maybe you push on it and it pops forward. And I yelled to him, I go, you got to check this out. So this is a re-illustration of what that could look like. So I said, let's go. I took a lot of convincing to get him to go in with me. He's thinking I'm crazy. I said, don't worry, we're going to shut the bookcase behind us so they'll have no clue that we're down here. So we did. There's a door behind it. We opened. It was unlocked. We went in. We started going downstairs, and the stench of cedar. By the way, I love the smell of the cedar, but this cedar was overwhelming, overwhelming stench of cedar. We got downstairs, and let me go here. There was actually cedar shoe shelves that were at least 20 to 30 feet long. I mean, they went forever. The smell was so much, we were covering our noses and our mouth, and my eyes started to water a little bit. It was crazy. Now, I'm going to go back to this and say what the ramifications of cedar shoe shelves are today that I didn't understand back then. In fact, back then we were joking, oh, does Imelda Marcos own this house? She was, the old Philippines dictator's wife, that she was into shoes, so on and so forth. So when you go past the cedar shoe shelves, by the way, these are illustrations still. I didn't get pictures while I was there in 93. They had a movie studio just like the one you see here. Now, in 93, that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you see they're more common, but in 93, full full on leather, the whole studio, everything you can imagine was the setup for people to screen movies. We went into another room, seemed like there was a miniature bowling alley there, a lot of kids stuff down there. Now remember, this is underground. Why on earth would this stuff be underground? What's the purpose of this stuff being underground? It
And
makes
why would they have a children's
exactly
bowling ball alley, not an adult's? If they're gonna
right.
make it, they should, you know.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
then right past that, there's the end of the tunnel. You come to a steel door. Now, the steel door was locked, so I could not get into the steel door. But remember, this is in the middle of Beverly Hills. We understand the Playboy Mansion has tunnels. We know the Getty Center has tunnels. Several places around there have tunnels. We've heard that Bob Hope's properties had tunnels. Oh, guess what? The owner of this place, his name's Ron Burkle, just happened to buy the Bob Hope properties. Also, plus another very famous property I'll talk to you about in a second. Unfortunately, this door is locked, so I did not get through. But there's the Playboy Mansion. Did it lead to the Playboy Mansion? I have no idea. Did it lead to here? I have one of the Getty here also. Here's the Getty.
Wow.
Did it lead to the Getty Mansion?
Wow.
I don't know. I can tell you the best friend of Ron Burkle is that dude. They are
Wow.
besties. I can also tell you that Ron Burkle is the actual godfather of P. Diddy's children.
And that's Burkle right there on the left.
That's Ron Burkle right there. I can tell you he also invested $100 million into Sean John, which is P. Diddy's garment line. Is there any garment line that's up and coming that's worth 100 million? I don't think so, but we know the way they play with money, right?
Hmm.
So move forward. Obviously, we know P. Diddy and the situation with Justin Bieber. He even wrote a song about this, exposing P. Diddy. These are some famous type people that have been at the Burkle Mansion during this party, right? And now, when it gets interesting, is what I learned later. I ended up meeting, and I'll go back to some of these pictures, but I ended up meeting somebody. She's probably about 28 years later, a long, just a few years ago. And she was the ex-wife of somebody extraordinarily famous worldwide. Everybody knows his name, unless maybe they're living in a tent in Africa. Other than that, they know this guy's name. She's the ex-wife of this guy, and we're starting to get to know each other because I was doing work for her. I was actually designing a beautiful outdoor construction plan for her because that's my business, what my business used to do. So we started to get to know each other, and she found out I had something called Screw Big Gov, so on and so forth. And we became friends because she was actually pushed out of Hollywood and the entertainment business because she was a Trump supporter. And this was just a few years ago, guessing maybe 3, 4 years ago, maybe five, somewhere around there. And so I found it fascinating that we would have these conversations. And then I told her about, oh, this was this cool mansion I worked on in the back in the day, so on and so forth. And I described it, and she goes, it was at Green Acres. Now, I didn't know until then that this mansion had a nickname. So I go, I don't know. I guess, some dude, Ron Burkle, he bought it, da 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 da. And then she about lost it. She turned white. She says, and then she wanted to, it seemed like she wanted to vent. So she's like, wow, let me tell you what used to happen at this mansion. She said he was good friends with Bill Clinton, and they were like besties. And Bill Clinton, while he was president, would fly into these events that he Burkle held at this mansion. Some of them were charity events, some of them were parties, and a lot of them were Democrat fundraisers, right? So they became very, very close. Found out that the one party that was held every year is the reason why Burkle was able to purchase this property, and his motivation to buy it because it was the largest Hollywood event every single year that was on a private property. And that part of what he signed in is that he guaranteed in perpetuity that he would continue to hold this so-called charity event party every single year. Well, I'm thinking the owner probably didn't know that was his motivation anyways, because he wanted, and he's a shrewd businessman. That's why he wanted the party, because he wanted to do the party. I mean, that's why he wanted the property, because he wanted to do the party. She said at the end of this big event, right, what happened is everybody would leave. Bill Clinton would linger. Then Burkle would send away this lady, my contact, and his wife, and pay full paid these exotic vacations that were outside of the country. So they would disappear for weeks on end. She found out that what happened is Bill Clinton would have his Secret Service Team A there. He would then send in his Secret Service Team B. He'd say, "Go, guys, go away." He'd send it as B. I later found out from a Secret Service guy I just interviewed that that's commonplace, especially with the Clintons. Even Hillary did this. They had two sets of Secret Service. They had your normal ones, and then they had the ones that would cover up all their crap. And he said, and those were the boys. In fact, he refused jobs because of this, right? So he verified that that's true because I had to verify it. I didn't know if that was true or not. It's what she said. She seemed credible. Sure enough, that's what happened. So I found out that he stayed at Burkle's estate while he was president, sometimes over a week, and everybody thought he was at Martha's Vineyard. And then I found out recently that they would traffic in young teenage girls to this mansion. And to this day, I don't know if the young teenage girls ever left, right? Now, why would I say something so so nefarious is that? And I'll show you this. I'll go back to a picture that I was talking about because I had to do my research. Remember those shoe shelves, the cedar shoe
Yeah.
shelves?
Mm-hmm.
And remember, this is underground. Before you can get to anything underground, you had to bypass these shoe, go through these shoe shelves. They were empty at the time when we were there. This is a recreation, this picture. So I did some research and I found out that, especially back then in the 90s, that the dog's senses, the search
Oh.
dog senses would get jacked up when they went to go search things like this.
Oh God.
Right? So what happened is they couldn't find cadavers or anything that could possibly be there because they would get messed up. So I called my buddy, who is actually a premier search dog trainer, and he works with cadavers and other things like that. In fact, I've been on the ground with him on locations before. Wonderful guy, very knowledgeable. He says nowadays they train for things like this. So if they smell the cedar, they know how to protect the dog, so on and so forth, or they can train against it. He says, but even today, like one of his best dogs there was a site where the exhaust was just pumping exhaust from a car onto the site, and the dog's like, and he had to take 3 hours off with his dog, right? Dog had to reset. So I said, is it plausible? He said, oh, in the 90s, absolutely. He says, I don't think dogs were trained for that at all. And they would just shut down, and there's no way that they could do anything after that. So unfortunately, I believe that these ladies, young teenagers, actually probably never left the site. And the ones that did are, of course, scared to absolute death.
Yeah. Wow.
So it
That's
goes a little deeper. Ron Burkle's son died in Beverly Hills, I believe it was 2020, at the age of 26. Now, what was interesting though is the news media at the time, all over the website on Google, and Ron Burkle's son's brother reported that his age was 27. His name is Andrew Burkle. Even his brother reported his age is 27, and that's documented. Why does that matter? Well, in Hollywood, they have the 27 Club,
oh my goodness.
and these are people that are suspiciously all dead at the age of 27. Now, it's a satanic ritual. This is my opinion. I have to state that, right? In my opinion, you don't get to the high echelons of Hollywood and some other things unless you take the deal. Part of the deal in their satanic deal is you either have to convert one of your children from to another sex, right? That's part of the
Hmm.
deal, or you have to kill a family member,
Oh
and it's
my God.
considered a sacrifice. The fact that this was highly reported at 27, even though his guy was 26, I think is very, very suspicious. But guess what other property Burkle bought?
Neverland.
He purchased Neverland Ranch.
Wow. Oh my God.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, very crazy.
Now, I don't think Burkle is like Epstein. I think Burkle's more like, this is my opinion, guys. I got to say my opinion. I think he's more like Robert Maxwell or Les Wexner, who are the funders and the controllers of Epstein. I believe he may have that much leverage. And I would just suggest people look into this. This guy right now, he needs to get involved, and that's Cash Patel.
Yeah.
I think this is big. I've had a couple of people that are trying to get the information to him, right? So on and so forth. I think it's very, very important. Um, in in my opinion, this is one of the biggest stories. I hope it can link some things together for them. And this is the time, if we're going to act, we act now.
Hmm.
This is what my feeling is on this. And I believe they can make a big difference if they really want to make a difference. Now, I've got the witnesses. I'm smart enough to give the witnesses to certain people just to protect myself and my family. I think that's smart. Although I believe I'm absolutely divinely protected,
Hmm.
so I think we're in great shape. Not really worried about that, but just to be smart, I made sure that the information will go out quickly if something were to happen. But I don't see it happening. I don't feel like that at all.
No, I feel that that they're trying to hold back the truth, but like you're trying to hold water, it just goes right through your fingers. And this is just another piece of the pie that is, this is a big one. This is huge. What do you, I mean, with the Diddy thing and the Epstein thing, and now our Maui police chief that's trying to, he's saying that, he showed bank records that showed he wasn't in the area at the time of the incident, but that just means the credit card was used. And his signature of he had a signature on a receipt for 24-hour fitness. And the signature is really strange. I'm gonna look up the rest of it, see if it's an actual signature because it's just like a circle. It's really weird. But what are your thoughts on what do you think is gonna happen?
Well, you're talking about Pelletier, I
Mm,
believe, if I don't know if I
yes,
pronounced
correct. John
his
Pelletier.
name right, and he was the communications director for the Las Vegas Police Department with during the Las Vegas shooting.
Mhm. Incident commander for that.
Incident
Yeah,
commander, right? And he was the forefront, the one that was giving directions on how you speak to the press, what you say, what you don't say. And then
correct.
suddenly, before the Maui fire, the Great Lahaina fire, I call it, he happened to be the chief of police
Mm.
during that, and now he's connected directly to Diddy. Maybe you can go into deeper what you found in regards to that.
Yeah, well, for him, he the Mandalay Bay shooting. For him, there was a lot of questions that were unanswered. He was the incident commander. A couple of them that weren't answered when the case closed during the Mandalay Bay shooting in Las Vegas. One of them was they didn't have a motive, so they actually closed the case without having a motive at the time. And they also closed the case without knowing how did the shooter get so much ammunition up to his room. He shot 1,000 rounds into 22,000 people, a crowd of 22,000 people, 1,000 rounds. And also the fact that so many witnesses were saying that shots were coming from different locations. So a lot of questions unanswered. For him to be the Maui police chief, they actually had to change a law. There was a law that you had to be a resident of Maui for a year before you were allowed to be the police chief. That was the only law that they changed in order to get him to be for him to be allowed to be police chief. He did beat out on 17 other applicants that were locals, and it's very strange. His secretary had a very a weird accidental death. It was a car crash. She crashed into a tree. It was very under just weird circumstances, but nothing was ever really investigated. Wasn't taken to the hospital right away. Different things that with that situation. We think that when I was talking to Samantha Starkey on this the other day, we believe that she probably saw something that she wasn't supposed to see, and she was beloved. She was a beloved secretary of 20 years in the department. Other weird things. There was 7 complaints within 7 months of him being the Maui police chief. 7 complaints against him by different officers that felt threatened, verbally abused. 3 of them were taken to the police commission. 2 of them were female officers. One of them was a female employee. All the police commissioners found all of the charges were unsubstantiated. They said all these 3 charges of these 3 women, everything they're saying is unsubstantiated. So somebody's got his back. Somebody's got his back here. The mayor had said that he needs to step down from his position. And Pelletier said no, that he didn't want to step down because these are that the allegations are false and that he has proved bank records that he wasn't there, and so he didn't feel like he wanted to step down. But a lawyer actually said he needs to because if he turns out to be a bad cop, then that means every single case he's been on can be thrown out because his credibility would be shattered, which it already is. People are already asking for him to be removed. So those are a few of the things. I've done two different videos on that as well. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. These bank records show his credit card wasn't in the area. And but I read through the documentation that alleges he was a part of covering up what happened, and it's really, really really sad for those victims. But also, why would a victim go, "Oh, let's just choose randomly this police chief over here?" You know, there's just like a victim wouldn't do that. They're already scared.
Yeah.
They're already in trauma. They're not just gonna say something that isn't true. It hasn't been proven in court,
Mhm.
but it's very questionable.
Well, yeah, and you do what I do. I like to look at, because you don't always have the evidence. You have to put down circumstances. So why would Maui hire a guy that had the biggest failed investigation in the last 10 years? Why would
Mhm.
he be their top pick? Why would they hire somebody that was the biggest failed investigation, that was the only one that was an outsider, when we all know that you would want a police chief that's an insider so you can communicate with the public better, and so on and so forth? Did was his secretary that got killed by a tree, quote unquote, in this in Maui itself?
Yeah. Yeah, she was in Maui. She was a beloved person. She was a secretary for 20 years. Also very questionable of the former police chief. He was forced to retire early. So there was a really weird situation where he backed up. These security cameras show him hitting. It was weird though. It was like he backed up and then he was like a hit and run with the police chief, former police chief, and his wife. And he had to, anyway, it was a big old thing where he had to end up retiring early. But what's really strange is that the camera it was really weird. It was like he backed up and then all of a sudden the camera angle kind of changes and then he hits a car and then he hits this motorcycle. So it was really weird. And he said that, you know, he doesn't remember hitting it. And anyway, it was a big old hit and run and he was forced to retire early. So,
Well, I like to break things down to statistics sometimes, so because the data will give indications of what's going on. So while you were talking, I was researching. So you average about 95, 92 to 95 car accident fatalities in Hawaii every year total. If you bring it down to Maui, it's a much smaller
hmm
percentage, right? Because that's in the whole state.
yeah.
30% of those are from are motorcycle accidents, right? I'm assuming that she was in a car, right?
The secretary, yes,
Yeah, and she hit a tree with a car, right?
correct.
Most of those are head-on accidents.
hmm
So maybe there's one or two a year of people that
hmm
would actually hit a tree and die from that. So when you break down the statistics, it pretty much says that this was a hit. It's not what it appears. And the reason why I always do that is because math doesn't lie,
hmm
right? And it's very
Correct.
important for us to break it down. So that's why I just had to look at the statistics while you were talking, because I'm like, yeah, this doesn't even make sense. What are the odds? The odds are next to impossible. In
Yep.
fact, how many millions of people are on all the islands combined?
Uh, oh, that's a good question. I haven't looked that up yet.
Let's say it's, even if it's just a million, that's a 1 in a million
Yeah,
deal.
and I don't even think it's a million. We're
Right.
small. We're small. These islands aren't very
Right.
big.
So it's just incredible. It's not going to happen. Not going
No.
not going to happen. So of course they probably shut down the investigation because he
hmm
was in charge of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He one of the complaints was, and he was on camera and on tape, and obviously witnesses have also said that one of his things that he said he would fillet anyone who went against him and was subordinate, and he would fillet especially the first person to show them that don't mess with him, is basically what he
Wow.
said in a meeting to his first people that he's supposed to be in command of. I mean, there was also people that were retiring early and they were saying that it's because of Pelletier, because the work environment was so hostile that they two people that I know of retired early. So this man is now in allegedly in the Diddy's case for helping to not only cover it up, but in the case it actually says that he took two people by gunpoint from Vegas
Yep.
to California. And that's just horrific. Like yeah, that's why I say that this is a spiritual warfare, because these demons, and I really feel that some of these people, they're just not people, because you
Oh,
can't, this is
totally agree.
why, yeah, we have hearts, and this is,
Hmm.
we care about each other, but to do some of these things is just so horrific. But
Yeah.
Lewis, this what you have uncovered is absolutely incredible. I haven't seen anything about it except for what I've seen through you. So thank you so much for that research and for thinking back, thinking back to that mansion. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's got millions and millions of views on X, which is great. But there's a couple people and I go, "How dare you hold on this information for 30 years? And how many people died because of you?" And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I get
Hmm.
it. As soon as I heard, I started, or as soon as I put the pieces together, I started to report it. And then the Diddy piece just fell in my lap about 2, 3 weeks ago. And then I put that together. And because Diddy's in the news, that's probably why it went viral. So I understand why people would be like that, but I don't live in fear. If as soon as I know there's something out there, I'd put it out there.
And also this is a game. That's part of the game. That piece came at that time. It wasn't ready. The timing of the story here, it wasn't time yet for that to come, to come out
Oh,
into
right. Yeah.
to the world yet.
Assuming I knew 30 years ago what was going on and I gave it to the Beverly Hills Police Department, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
That's that's just the way it is, right? I wouldn't have known back then. My naivety, I would have said, "Oh yeah, let's give it to everybody," right? I
Hmm.
would I wouldn't know what the ramifications of that were. Now I do.
Yeah, these people are very, very dangerous, and they're also, but also, that's what I said. It's a God and the devil kind of battle here, and that's why when we stay in our heart and we keep our relationships clean and we stay in integrity and we follow our guided intuition and we trust the infinite creator, there is a power here. And like you said, you feel protected. I feel protected many, many times over here. And we're on the front lines doing this work and sharing news. So, Lewis, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you've done. I mean, and to bring this out because you keep doing that over and over again. And the more of us to do that, the quicker everybody's going to wake up, the safer we all are because we're all in the knowing now. They can't kill all of us. So we just keep going. And I just want to say so much mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much.
And you too. I just
All
don't
right.
say it as beautifully as you do, so I just say, yeah, thank you also.
Well, let's do a quick prayer because that's what I do at the end of each of my
Please.
shows. And Infinite Creator, Great Spirit, you are guiding the honeybees to their flowers. You are touching our hearts and you're guiding us through inspired in spirit, intuition. And Great Spirit, we know that this is the time of awakening. And we know that each person has a spark of truth in their own hearts. And we know that that spark of truth is growing and growing and growing, getting lighter and lighter and brighter until the world is just unfold and engulfed in this beautiful white light of truth and of love and of the knowingness that this world is free. Great Spirit, you created all things. You created us, and you said that we have dominion over all of it. And Great Spirit, we just know that this world is becoming a better place for all people, and especially our children. Our children are safe, they are free, they are loved, and they know that they matter. Great Spirit, we just see this world right now as a world where people shake hands and hug each other, and that we do things to support each other all the time. We call forth love, we call forth friendship, we call forth ohana, family, that we all are one family together. And we bind those who do not value human life, who do not value freedom. We bind them with the beautiful white light of infinite and unconditional love, that they cannot do any more harm. We call that forth now. We call forth the legions of angels that have got our back, and those guides, those spirit guides that never leave us and are always whispering to our hearts of what is ours to do. And Great Spirit, we know that this world is becoming and is a better place for truth that unfolds in the most perfect timing, the most perfect timing. Great Spirit, we call that forth now. We see this world as a better place. And so it is. Louis, thank you so much for everything that you do. I look forward to seeing you again here on the islands, or maybe at the Red Pill Expo. I'm not sure, but I'd love to see you again. And much mahalo to you and to your family.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Michelle.
Aloha, everyone.